Hello, I'm Jim Beute. I'm a hard luck nerd here at the BrickFair convention. I've got a few mocks that I've put together over the last year. One of the good things about being in the lug down in Norfolk, we get to do a couple of Comic-Con shows a year. So every 6 months I get to have an excuse to go make some big ridiculous spaceship or some science fiction-y thing. First one here out front is Battlestar Galactica. It's the old school Battlestar Galactica, the one from the 70s. In fact, that was one of the first mocks I ever made when I was a little kid, was a tiny little Battlestar Galactica, and I was so proud of that, and I told my mom, and I wanted to write a letter to the Lego company. Forgot all about it until somebody reminded me of that when I was building this thing. Here at the show, I learned what a ship timber is. So came home from the show last year, I had an acre of gray plate from the collaborative that the group did. So hey, Battlestar Galactica, let's do it. So September 1st, we sit down and we do the thing. And September, at the end of the month, you got to send them a picture of this big ship that you've built. I like Battlestar Galactica and had to have it for the Comic-Con show, so we put it together. So a great big honking Battlestar Galactica, and as you know, and if we discussed before, it's got to come apart in pieces because I'm driving around in a small car. So like this whole back section comes off, each of the arms comes off. The legs, they can detach and they fold back on, and the head is up there. Angle plates was the big thing. So all these hinges and the new ball joints that are out there make the job a whole lot easier. It's a piece of cake. It's not as hard as it used to be to make all these shapes. So put the shapes together, get the basic shape. And it was actually two-man swooshable at the time. I had it so you could kind of tack the parts together and you could swoosh it around if you had two people. But then we greebled it, and that like doubled the weight. Greebling, as you know, is putting all these things on the outer plating and shell to make it look like the model.
Kind of those nice little details that give it that iconic look.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And I found that each different show had its own style of greebling. So this was all a bunch of flat plates and various different things. So then it just got too heavy. It was no longer swooshable, so I stopped trying to make it. So now it sits here as a nice paperweight, and that's about it. Threw some lights in the back here. Just those are again, my friend had the idea of just put the blue glass in there and drop some LEDs in there, and we've got those little red light up bricks that we can drop in the hangar bay. I don't think they're on still, but yeah, those make it interesting at night. I think that's about it for Battlestar Galactica. So that was a Comic-Con show about a year ago. For Comic-Con for next year, for Mystery Science Theater, if you know that show and love it, this is actually kind of scratch built. I slapped this together in about 2 weeks. About 4 weeks ago, we were building it for the next Comic-Con show, and we said, this will probably be in good enough shape you can bring it to BrickFair and show it off, and then you won't have to bother bringing it next year. So Mystery Science Theater, the show, it's a great big thing that looks like a dog bone up in space, and that's the thing. And it was a low budget cable TV show that was hilarious. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But there's Joel or in this different generations, but Joel and his robot friends, Tom Servo and Crow T Robot. My son is the minifig guy, so he's built Joel and the bots up there in the front. And at every show, they would take their orders from the mad scientists on the view screen on the front show, and they'd tell jokes and do an invention exchange or something. And then you'd walk down this corridor, and you'd see all the doors going. And then you'd get back to the movie theater where they'd watch some crappy old movie, and then you'd see their silhouettes in front of the screen, and they'd crack jokes about it. Anyway, so we built that here. It was a lot of fun, and part of the fun of building these iconic ships is people that know them love them. I had a couple of ladies here; they were jumping up and down just in glee because somebody built their satellite of love, and that was good warm feeling for that. Anyways, not much to it though, except these again as we come around the back, you might actually see more of the construction. Back to the ball joints. When you're building all these goofy facets, we get the ball joints out here so we can just clip those on and slide them into place, because otherwise it would have killed me to try to make these little geodesic domes out of the white plate and tiles. And again, you can see the backside here. Since the public would never be back here, it's just us lug guys. That's where the wiring is for the lights and things like that. And I've left a couple open there so that we can get in for access and repair. That's Satellite of Love in a nutshell. That one's a little smaller. For transport, the ends just come off, so we slide that off as one piece, and that's relatively transportable. Babylon 5 was the one we had for last spring's Comic-Con show. Loved Babylon 5 growing up. It was one of those space stations out there, and the people came to it through some jump gates or whatever. and it was the place where the ambassadors from different races could get together and work out their problems and all that. That's the storyline. Again, if you haven't seen it, check it out. You could do a whole lot worse. Big iconic spaceship, a lot of fun, loved it. The big noticeable thing is part of it rotates. There's this big rotating cylinder that that gives them their artificial gravity, and that was the hard part of this build. Actually, the fun part of the build is the frustration of having to build this thing about 8 times to get it right, because you start out building the big cylinder light, but then the cylinder, it flexes and bows because it doesn't have enough structure, so that then you've got to reinforce it on the inside with lots of stuff, and that gets heavier, so you need bigger bearings. And yeah, so I had to redo that at 7 or 8 times. It's modular, so the back end cracks out like this, and the cylinder itself, when we field strip it, it comes out as one big piece, and that goes in the trunk of the car. These little things come off, and that's about it. It's been misbehaving, so I've got the back side off here because we've had a couple of stage fright things when we put it here at the show. Oh, it starts misbehaving. But that's it in a nutshell for Babylon 5. A lot of fun to build. We tried for the first time. There's different kinds of Lego. There's everything from mosaics to these brick heads. Down in front are the 3 brick heads of 3 of the ambassadors on the show, and the fans. Again, it's another thing. Babylon 5 fans, them when they come by, because they'll recognize it and they'll run across the room drooling and woohooing and high-fiving, and that's a good feeling. But they were digging those. I needed table filler for the Comic-Con show, so I tried those brick heads for the first time, and they came out okay. Those are the ambassadors from that actual show. And that's probably more than you ever wanted to know about that.
No, that's fascinating. These are such incredible ships here. So it's Babylon 5 with the big moving cylinder. Talk a little bit more about kind of the structure and the internals of that kind of keeps all that running.
Okay, and if your brother comes over here, there's just one large Lego motor that's in here. It's turning at its rotation. It's just standard power function stuff, and I built several little reduction gears, so I reduced the rotations down each left and right side through the little pinions. And each of those come out with a tiny little gear working on that those Lego planetary gears, the 4 gears that come together to make a great big circle. So with Technic pins, we just tack those planetary gears to the end of this barrel of monkeys here, and we can turn it at the right rotation. And it's a very stable, useful way to turn a big cylinder. I tried a different method with a smaller gear last year, and it was just one headache after another. But if you slap a planetary gear in there, you can turn something like this with minimal effort and good reliability. That's about it. And again, one big box girder that's been reinforced with lots of hinges and plate and stuff to keep that thing as rigid as possible. And the downside of that is the thing's pushing 50 pounds now in total because of all that reinforcing structure inside there. But hey, it works.
Yeah. So when you build ships of this size, they're so big, do you keep these together, or is it pretty much just build it, display it, and then take it apart for a new one?
My wife won't tolerate more than 2 of these in the house, and that's only because she knows there's 2 Comic-Con shows a year, and we like to bring them up here afterwards. So yeah, tonight when the show's closing, Galactica's gone. I'm sick of looking at her. Likewise, Babylon 5's gone. Satellite of Love is for the next Comic-Con show, so I'll keep her together and bring her out to that one. But yeah, you got to recycle the parts if you're a married man, that is. Anyways.
These are such an impressive size here, these ships you build. So what are some tips for maybe other people who want to build a little bit bigger like this? What have you found works over the years?
I guess don't sweat the details. My friend Adrian was talking, he builds big ships. He describes a 10-foot mock. Something this big, people aren't going to get right up close to. They're going to stand 10 feet away so they can take in the whole view. So don't get uptight about the little creases and imperfections in it. And structure, the ABS plastic that Lego's made of, or maybe I got that wrong, but the plastic Lego's made of, it gets heavy and it's dense, and when you get a whole bunch of it together, it starts weighing a lot. So it's more about internal structure rather than exterior looks at the end of the day. You can always greeble and plaster the outer shell on it, but you got to have structure in there so that it'll stand under its own weight.
Yeah, I think that's some good advice there. So thanks so much for bringing all these massive builds out. They're so impressive. I'm glad you could display them here at BrickFair. Appreciate it.
Okay, hey, thanks for your time.